We're delighted to host Eric Uberseder, who is an experienced photographer in nearly every genre, including working as a professional wedding and portrait photographer in the 1980s. He's also been a longstanding library patron, and his wife Linda has also supported many of our youth programs over the years. So we're really glad to have you all and Eric here tonight. So thank you. Please warmly welcome Eric.
Good. It's nice to see people I know, people I don't know. I'm going to be talking about the pictures that are here that I took, and a little bit about what it takes to take pictures like that I've taken, that you could probably take too, but not quite like this. But I can show you how you will. Okay, so the exhibit is unusual. And what you want to know is, how did I go from that to this? I'm hoping you don't fall asleep. So I started as a dog and cat photographer. You know, I learned a lot from my teachers. And then I did a bad thing. I took something I loved and I turned it into a job. I became a wedding and portrait photographer, which seemed like a good thing at the time. I learned what to avoid. I survived the child portrait. I survived the reluctant subject, some of you probably. I survived the smile refuser, and the drunk wedding party. Yes, for real, I had one where they opened the bar at 12 o'clock and the wedding wasn't until 1, and by that time everyone was smashed. And I survived the one where the bride said that their best man was a dog, and I said that I could take pictures of everyone very well, that I didn't need to worry about it, and then they said, no, Mike, he really is a dog. And I said, no, not me. I survived the beautiful but hateful bride who refused to pose for any of my photos at the wedding, and then didn't want to pay because I didn't take the pictures I said I would. And so I began to hate it, and I burned out. And sadly, I ended up crawling in the desert of almost no photography for about 15 years, except to take pictures of your family and your friends and stuff like that. But the other stuff I didn't do. So then 25 years later, I moved to NBI, and I thought I would become a landscape photographer. Well, I mean, my God, what else would I do here? Okay. But then I discovered that the best light is in the early morning, and hey, I'm retired. I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go take pictures. So that was that. And besides, I survived on being different from the crowd. And do you know how many great landscape photographers there are in NBI, like John, who lives down here? And yeah, I just, no, not me. So I went looking for inspiration, and I rediscovered, I sort of rediscovered macro photography. And then I discovered how many people are doing that. Not many. My father always said, be the best of everyone around. Well, if you fix it so there's not that many people around, then you can be the best. And then I discovered digital editing, which means I could make my photos look like I imagined them to be, or maybe even like the photos imagined themselves to be, if photos could do that. And so I was hooked. And that was just making it, oh, wow. I used to be called Hidden Images, and then one of Linda's groups kept saying, oh, wow, and I brought the pictures out, and I decided I had the wrong name, so I switched it. So inquiring minds want to know, apparently, how I made the photos you see, and that's what I'm going to talk about, exactly what it takes to make these photos. And it might be complicated, but we'll go anyhow. Okay, so the first thing I had to do is I had to figure out what I was going to communicate. I mean, if you're just taking pictures and you don't know what you're trying to communicate, then nobody will hear what you're saying. And so I spent a lot of time as a professional counseling psychologist with little kids. And so my favorite feeling is surprise. And so surprise is what I wanted, and especially because people my age aren't surprised about anything anymore. And so if I can get people who are my age say, oh, wow, that's really neat. I'm saying you could do this. If you have a smartphone and a few attachments, you might be able to blow your pictures up and make them like this. And there are attachments to make this. But the problem is that if your phone's sensor is this, my sensor on my camera is this, and this is the size of a 13 by 19. So you can imagine that if you take a picture with your phone, you can make the picture, but you better stand 5 or 6 feet away. It's not going to stay sharp. So I tell people they can do it, but that's it. So I need to tell you what close-up and macro is, first of all, so we're on the same page. Close-up is normally smaller things that you make really big. That means like flowers, kitchen utensils, things that are bigger than an inch, but smaller than 3 inches. Macro is very small things that are made really big, like the salt grain upstairs, like bugs, like nails, like a watch face, down to like 19 thousandths of an inch, which is the edge on that grain of salt upstairs. And micro, well, that's microscopic, parameciums. I don't take pictures of parameciums. So first of all, you have to get the shot, but that doesn't get you, oh, wow. And if you don't get the shot, well, so people will ask me, so what subjects would be, oh, wow? That's the usual question. And so I decided I need to make up a group so I would know what that is. And the first thing is the subject has to jump out at you, which means that it needs to be in color and it needs to have no more than 4 contrasty colors with a black background, which is what I normally use, black background. Or it could be something really strange that nobody's ever seen before, and then the colors are not as important, like an alien. I've never taken an alien. The second is the subject has to be something you never see before. How many of you have seen a pink dandelion? Nobody. That's because there aren't any, but there should be, don't you think? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I fixed that. Or it could be 19 thousandths of an inch of Morton salt, or it could be something too fast for the human eye. Like if you drop water into a drop into water, it comes up in a column, just like that, but you never see it. It's too fast. Or things that are not seen because they're left behind. People throw away their flowers when they're old, but they're really beautiful. Third, third, it has to be razor sharp across the whole photo. Okay, so and in order to be, oh wow, there can't be any like it's sharp in the center and then it's phasey on the side. It has to be all the way across the whole photo, and it has to be sharper as you get closer. So when you look at it from a distance and then you walk up close to see the thing, it has to get sharp enough so that you say, oh, whoa, that is sharp. That's what it has to be. Otherwise, it won't be, oh wow. It'll be, oh, that's beautiful, but it won't be, oh wow. So the first question everyone asks then is, what kind of equipment do you need? Like, you have really good equipment, that takes care of it, right? Well, so we'll go over that. To do it, you need what is called a dedicated macro lens. This is a lens that specifically takes pictures of at least 1 times. It fills up the whole screen. You can get close enough to be able to fill up the whole screen. You can get by without it, but not to print to 13 by 19. I recommend a very sharp 150 millimeter because you keep trying to get closer and closer. And if you don't have a long enough distance in the front between it to start, you're going to find yourself, well, I'll tell you later. It needs to be manual focus because nobody makes an automatic focus lens that has fine enough detail between the turns of the wheel to give you what you really need, no matter how much they charge you for it, like $1,400. Sorry. And the lens wheel should have a big turn on it, unless something else. You need a tripod. I recommend the one with all the things, not the ball one at the top, because you need to turn it. And you need a shutter release because you don't want the camera to be moving, anything to move. You want to be able to hold the shutter over here, not touching the camera, so something moves when you do it. Because with macro, you have no depth of field, and if it's really macro, the dog walking across the floor will make it shake. You might need a focus rail, something like this, only smaller. This is it. Okay, so the camera sits on top of the rail and then you turn the rail to focus it. I'll show you a lens that requires that. You might not need it. If you have the lens that I showed you before, then you have a lot of manual adjustments and you might not need a focus rail. Focus rail's a pain, but you need extension tubes, but not these. These. So extension tubes basically allow you to get closer to the picture because you're moving the camera further away and then the object gets larger on the screen. They're basically just holes and then the connection goes through. They do require more light. You can't focus to infinity on your camera anymore, but you don't care, you're shooting macro. And they're cheap. $39 for 3. I have like 5.5 inches of them. So this sleepy bumblebee is only 3/4 of an inch long. I took my regular camera out with a zoom at the butterfly museum or butterfly garden up there and a couple of extension tubes, and I was able to take that picture. So you can, okay? And more, yeah, a teleconverter would help. This makes it longer. So it's like if the telephoto is like 150, then it becomes 300. So the good thing about that is that you can take the same picture from further away, which is good if you're taking butterflies and you don't want them to flit away on you, or you can get closer because you have that. And finally, you could use a close-up filter. This is like a magnifying glass and it fits on the front of your lens. And then if you're done, you get something that looks like this. Okay, so this is the close-up filter. This is the macro lens. This is the 6 inches of filters, and then this is the teleconverter here, and then finally you get to the camera. But you get this. You can get stuff like this then. Okay, there is another way. There's another lens combination, but it's not for you. Okay, after 7 years of doing macro, I finally bought one this year. This lens has no focus at all. It just goes to distance lengths, like 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. You have to use the rail, which is at the bottom because it doesn't focus. It has no focusing. If you put a teleconverter on it, then it's like 10 times. If you put this other thing on it in the front, then it's like 20 times. I have no idea how to take a picture like that. That's probably parameciums. You can't take it into the field unless you're a robot because you can't hold it still enough. And seeing through it without a mirrorless camera is a real pain because a regular digital SLR, not a phone, that's like a mirrorless camera, you see through the lens and it's dark. So you need a mirrorless camera that amplifies the light so you can see it. So I have one, but you don't want one. You'll give up on macro if you buy one of these to start. So if you don't have that, then all those things with the big lens in the first place is to get the subject here rather than in the middle of your lens, which is obviously impossible, but that could happen because you can't get it focused. So before we get into everything else, we have to talk about the revolution in close-up and macro photography. This is not like the French Revolution. Okay, it's called focus stacking. No little animals are killed with a guillotine. What it means is that in order to get the picture sharp, all the way from the front to the foreground to the background, what you do is you take like 100 images. Each one of them is sharp at one part of it, and the rest of it is blurry. Okay, and then you give it to the computer, and the computer puts them all together, and then the whole thing is sharp from front to back. This makes a huge difference in macro. We could never do that before. There was never any way to keep the camera, have the whole thing sharp all the way across until they had focus stacking with the computer. Okay, so we can talk about the 3 sheep of light measurement. They're all supposed to be the same size, but ISO there, he got small. So we're only going to talk about aperture. So remember this big picture I have of the lenses here. You have the sun, and you can see that with all this that has to go all the way through, the light has got to go from all the way there, all the way here. It gets lost on the way. And so then it gets dark and it's hard to take a picture. And then you have to raise the sensitivity of the sensor, because when you have low light, you have to raise the sensitivity. And when you raise the sensitivity, that's called ISO, high ISO. Above 4,000 is high ISO. And when it gets really dark, it can be really grainy. You know, not like this, but like this. This is called grainy or high noise. This is a hoverfly, but really you can't use that. Look at all the noise and the visual noise that's in the picture. So where you get this no-see-um bug, you really can't use that. Technology comes to the rescue. There's a piece of software called Topaz. It removes the grain and sharpens the photo and makes it bigger, and does it by removing or adding pixels. Don't ask me how it does this. It's probably magic. But right now it's the best. In 3 years, there will be some other program that's probably better or as good. But right now, Topaz is the best. There are problems with that, and I will tell you. So you could do all of this in your living room, and you can make your significant other really unhappy or you could do what I did. You can make a table that has wheels on it, and then you can have it in the living room, but move it back into some other place when the company comes. Okay, is that all? No. Advanced editing requires a lot of calculation, like those focus stacking. Okay, you need a powerful high-end computer. This is her machine, but for using mine, which was there, it's a powerful high-end computer. Okay, you need a digital darkroom, which means that you're going to have to edit the programs. All digital stuff is edited. Either you let your camera edit for you, or you did it yourself. If it wasn't edited, it would be black. That's what it looks like right out of the camera before the camera does something to it. This is Photoshop, Affinity Photo. There are many. You need Topaz. I mentioned Topaz already and what Topaz does. So you see that. So this is like, the genie in the box here after you do all that stuff. Finally, you need a way to get your work out there. The MDI Photo Club, which we should all join, she's going to join, is convinced me that I couldn't be a real photographer unless I actually participated in the show in the spring. And in order to do that, you really need your own printer, because otherwise you have to pay someone to print it for you. Okay, and maybe you should learn how to make frames. Frames cost between $150 and $200. I can make these for $37 myself in my shop. So that helped. Takes a while. And you need metallic paper so the photos jump right out of you. Okay, so up front, I have to tell you, advanced editing has two things that have to be addressed. First of all, there are no easy steps. There's no special button that you can press to make this suddenly work for you, unless you use an iPhone and then you say, hey, that did for me. But if you're going to use a regular camera rather than your phone, put it somewhere, then you have to follow trial and error to do it. And second of all, you need a high-end computer, because if you're going to use Topaz, you'll just wait forever without one. Okay, so now that you paid all the mutual bucks for the hardware and the software and the picture frames, we're going to get started with the pictures that I have here. Okay. I have a question about that? No. Okay. Nobody ever has questions. So let's start by looking at some heavy-duty editing fun. Do you think we should use this spring? It is unusual. It's this big. I got it at Parodies. No. It violates the color contrasty rule when you end up with a big, sharp, blah, gray metal spring. Not oh wow, but more like oh blah. Not oh blah, da either. Oh, some of you remember the song. She may not. Okay. Okay, so, but suppose we started with this, where I just put orange light and yellow light on both sides of it. And then I took the picture. It's the same spring, but the lighting is different. I'm saying, whoa, I was going to throw it away, but then I tried something else, trial and error, So it's unusual. It could be sharp with focus image, and it has two contrasty colors, and it has a Halloween-y feel, which is kind of neat. Okay. So how do you do it? You have to chain the spring securely so that it cannot move. So I glued it to a toothpick and connected the toothpick to a wood holder. You can't get away. Don't want your subject to get away. Then you have to start at one side of the focus of the spring and take little bitty pictures to the end. And that was 62 pictures in this particular case. Okay. And then you load it into the focus merge program, and you wait. And wait. And wait. You go get a cup of coffee. And I have a fast machine. So I have to wait between 4 and 12 minutes, depending on how many images there are to be merged and how big they were to start. Your mileage may be different. So right out of merging, this is what we have. That means we are still glued to the toothpick that held it still. And so that means we have to remove the glue in an editing program from the toothpick with a small, tiny black paintbrush. And then we have to change the orientation to up and away. Down and it's not good. When people look at a picture that's fading down, they think down, depression. So pictures have to be up. things should go from left to right too, because people read from left to right and people feel more comfortable that it's more right if it's right, left to right. That's another quote. We'll talk to that later. So we change the perspective and we adjust the color. And when I started to change the perspective, I said, I got the one side bigger than the other one. I'm going, whoa, that's special. Okay. And so then I go to topaz now. I have to sharpen it, denoise it, enlarge it. So this is what happens when you get rid of the noise reduction. You see that picture on the left side here. This is with all that noise we saw before when I blew it up. And this is the noise reduction. We get rid of it. It's all smooth. Okay. We have to sharpen it. Okay. So again, this is what it looked like beforehand. This is what it looked like after I sharpened it. Who knew that that smooth spring was actually striated? And then I have to enlarge it to 90 megapixels because I have to print at 600 dots per inch. That's way bigger than the standard of 300 inch because I want it sharp all the way across the board of the picture. And so then I have to use topaz to enlarge it from my normal size of 8,000 by 5,000 to 12,000 by 8,000. And topaz does that by adding pixels and taking out pixels and not just making it fatter. And then I have to go back to Affinity Photo and clean up all the stuff that got connected when it was there and all the edges and all the junk and stuff like that. And that can sometimes take half an hour and sometimes it can take much longer. And that's boring. But I won't talk about that. So then finally we have a finished picture and it's like, oh, wow. And that one's upstairs. Okay, so what else could we do? We could do smoke. There are two smoke pictures that I have here. Linda's favorite is smoke. She loves smoke. One of those was in our living room. Okay. It's ephemeral. Smoke. Smoke is only about creativity. So you use two flashes, one on both sides of the smoke and the incense in the center. And then you just take multiple flash pictures of the smoke as it's going up. You want to hope that you get lots of curlicues. But smoke is all about modifications to make it look neat. That's what it is. So it's just an editing kind of thing. Original smoke looks like that. Oh, that's neat if you like original smoke, but you can do a lot more than that, okay? It's more about bringing the smoke out. So first thing you have to do is you're going to make a lot of changes to it. So you need to make sure that the smoke is right to start. So you need to make sure that the smoke is average across the board, not that, okay? And so then you like this. So it looks like that, but then you want to make it so that you're going to make a lot of mods and you want the intensity of the smoke to be the same before you start. So you can see this is what it was, and then it's less intense now. So I raised the shadows. I like emerald green. I got emerald out of it. I just played with all those items there. I showed you what I did, but that's what it did. I'm all ready for the wizard. This is a good place to stop. No, let's keep going. So then we could modify this by taking the regular curls and getting a little carried away here with this. Is called some kind of swirly thing on editing. That looks pretty neat. Some people say, wow, I never saw smoke look like that. Yeah, I have special smoke. This is a good place to stop, right? But what's the fun in that? I went the wrong way. We could try some kind of reflective blending here where we could stop there, or we could turn off the color and we could turn off the shadows and we could turn off the sharpening and we'd take a plain color smoke and we could increase the saturation and the vibrance of the smoke, and then we could turn it into a negative. Okay, and this is what we get. That's really pretty neat. That's like the blue one. I mean, the purple one that's over there. Or you could just go completely. Oh, wow. Don't ask me what I did. But I think that's pretty neat. Okay. So what about water drops? There's some water drops upstairs. Have you ever seen a water drop hitting the water? Almost nobody ever has, unless it's a lot of water drops. And water drops do strange things. They do strange things if you could just see them. Okay. And so this drop hits the water, it bounces back up again. They always do. This water is actually green, but you didn't see it until it came back up. So how do you capture the water drop? There are three ways. You can use this MyOp splash unit, which has an electronic unit that adjusts the time interval in microseconds between the drops so that they land on top of each other at the right time in the right place. And then you get something that looks like that. I have this unit, but I've not tried it yet. The way I did it was a sponge instead of mops. You just sponge up at the top here, you just fill it with water, and then you get your remote flash, and as soon as it starts dropping, you start taking pictures with the flashes on both sides. And the drop guys were not on my fault, on my side, but I got this. It's pretty neat. And I got this, and I got this, and I got this, which is neat, but none of them bounced into each other like that other one. A third way would be the brute force method. Same sponge, no flash. Now we set the camera to 1/3200th of a second. We shoot at 20 frames per second, no floodlights, just flashes. Take 60 pictures in 3 seconds or until the buffer dies on you. And you're still praying. It's a better chance. I'm gonna try that one before I try the Mayas. So next, burning the house down. Matches are great. Everyone can take pictures of matches, but the key here is to take pictures of matches when the matches are ignition, when they're doing their ignition thing, okay? And so you want to know how to do that. And so again, I put lights around it, and then you need something to get it started, either another match or a paper clip that you heated up or something, okay? And so there it is. This is all about high shutter speed. You set the camera to 1/4000th of a second or even 1/8000th of a second. And then again, you shoot 12 to 20 frames per second, hold that shutter down. And as soon as this gets close to the flame, and then you get something like that. This is 1/4000th of a second. These are sparks. Like I would have to get 1/20,000th of a second to get them to be stopped. Okay. And this is at 1/4000th of a second, you see it breaking apart there. I thought that's pretty neat. Yes, this is another notice that we have children tonight with some other meeting. No, this is camera club. We're not having that. Okay, close. How many of the rest of you have to do that so you can remember to do stuff? Yeah, okay. Good, I'm not the only one. This is simply the match, and you just blow down on it. So it gets a reverse direction, and then it is, everyone loves this one for some reason. If I put it up on the internet, I get 300 people giving their thumbs up in seconds. I don't know why. Or you can just blow it out. Another fertile ground for close-up is kitchen utensils. I have 3 of my kitchen utensil series here. That one over there, which is the salt. I have one upstairs of the fork, which Kate just loves. And then I have the one over here in the corner, which is the toothpicks. Now, the toothpicks was 35 to 60 photos. I merged them. It's a rubber band of toothpicks. Unfortunately, it's oblong, not oblong, blah. Okay, so yeah, it's unusual. But you might not know what it is. It's razor sharp. From front to back, but it's brown and black, and these are not high contrast colors. It's interesting, but oh blah. So again, I say to you, there's no secret to photo editing. It's just trial and error. You just have to practice. So then I look at it and say, I need more contrast. And so then I tried all these backgrounds. Some of them are pretty neat, but it's still the same brown toothpicks. Nothing exciting about brown toothpicks. So I tried turning them into a high contrast negative. And then they're kind of neat. You know, the brown turned to some kind of blue, and then the black inside the toothpick turned to white, but it's still not the contrast. So then I just went back to the black, and bingo. Oh, wow. Okay. Most people think of, my screen has gotten somewhat larger than it was before, Kate.
Oh.
I don't know what to do about that. It seems to be larger. Is there some reason why they've done that?
Don't know.
All right, I won't worry about it. Okay. So most people think of macro, you think of bugs, okay? And the gear for this is different. This is the standard way. You use a flash that's on the side here. You have a diffuser there because the flash is too bright and glary, and you have to put a diffuser on it. And then you get up real close to the bug and you use the flash to take the pictures. And the only problem with this is that only the dumbest and slowest bugs are going to hang around when you do that. And the nice, exciting, colorful bugs, they're gone. Okay. And so this is, this is what I used, and I still use it some of the time. And this is what Stuart Wood uses some of the time. Stuart Wood is a famous macro photographer who lives in Australia. He won't be looking at this piece, so I don't have to worry about that. There is another way. I call it the technology way. My Canon R5 full frame has an incredible auto eye focus, okay? There are better cameras than that now. This is from 2020. I just looked and Sony has some really fabulous one that costs way more than I would ever pay for it. And topaz noise reduction. So then I can use the sun or I can use a floodlight and it shoot, instead of what the flash fires, I can shoot at 12 to 20 frames per second from 3 feet away for those flighty moving fast bugs, wasps, bees. And I can shoot at ISO 20,000 with topaz. And then I can get this. These are bottle flies. They don't belong there. They're having a conference about where they should belong. They don't usually eat flowers. They eat something else. They're talking about where they can find that. Sometimes the insect is invisible. So what you do with this picture is you just, you desaturate everything but the bug. And then suddenly you have a bug that is really neat. So I just took the color out of everything but the bug. So do you know how many plant parts, what plant parts were limited when there were when the dinosaurs were running things? No one knows? Flowers. There were almost no flowers during the dinosaur ages. My favorite flower is the dandelion. There are 6 of them out here. Someone bought all 6 of them, maybe one of you. All these are made by focus merging 30 to 75 photographs into one that is sharp from foreground to background. And so then again, we have the rare pink dandelion, which was really yellow, but I made it pink. Editing can do things. That dandelion really wanted to be pink, and now I've helped it. This is what I call the stage crew, the back of the flower. Who knew that? Many of you knew. I didn't. That the underside of the the dandelion had a brown stripe on it. Whoa! Cocoon time, getting ready. Now this one is a lot harder than you think. It took me 25 hours to make this one, because you have to go down to the pixel level, that big square there, and not all of the black comes through. And so then you have to go down at the pixel level here, and you have to take that little paintbrush and you have to fill in all those little spaces between here and here and here and here, so that it looks black all the way through. And then when you're done, you get something that looks like this. But I did a lot of work to make sure that the black all came through. And there are some places where I just got tired and stopped, which is right here. There's a little bit, I didn't quite finish it. That's fine. You can't do everything. It took me 25 hours is enough time. Or you get the fireworks here. So then there's also the blue iris. Blue irises do something special when you put them in something like infrared light. Okay, so we call it tone mapping. Okay, this compresses all the colors. If you have a picture that's essentially dark and you took it when it was near dark, then you can use tone mapping and it will compress all the colors, and then it'll come up and you'll see the color. And so low color temperature is near dark, high color temperature is midday. It's measured in Kelvin, in the Kelvin scale. I don't know why. Tone mapping expands the brightness when you have a really dark scene, which gives you this. But if you adjust the picture so that it goes back into the white balance, into the infrared range, then you get something like this, and you discover that the blue, I'm sorry, wrong way, that the blue turns into black, and the purple turns into something else, and you have what I call a demon iris. And I thought I'd had the gold run here of what I got, and I tried it on a regular flower, and it just looked like a piece of brown mush. So basically, it only works if you have those colors, blue, purple, and yellow, and then it works. So almost micro. Here we have a single grain of Morton table salt. Notice how the edges of it are kind of lumpy along the edges. This is not pure sodium chloride, pharmaceutical grade. This is Morton table salt. It's rough on the edges because it's got impurities in it. If I'd paid the $20 for a container of pure pharmaceutical grade, then I could take these and it would be sharp all the way across the edges. And you'd be saying, "Oh, how can it be like that?" It is. So every enlarging lane has his, you have to have much light go through it, where this goes to, okay. Okay, yeah, all right. So not macro. This is the impossible sunset on Seal Cove Road there. Why is this an impossible sunset? You all, some of you live down here. Nobody, I had this posted in my, when I had a month at Jessup, not one person told Laura why it was an impossible sunset. Someone knows, please. All right. This is a Seal Cove Pond. This is where the sun goes up and down, backwards like this way. The sun doesn't set here. Okay, but it should. Who cares if it faces south? So this would work. Bass Harbor, abracadabra. You take the sky out of Seal Cove, you take the sunset out of Bass Harbor, and with a little luck, you put the sunset up and the other parts at the bottom, and you have an impossible sunset on Seal Cove Road. And if nobody knows, hey, it's a picture that really happened. Subtle changes. We got him. Bigger than life. What's the difference between these two pictures? Who knows? The one on the right has bigger eyes. If you make the eye, I discovered this a while ago, if you make the eyes in the animals just slightly bigger with something called pinch punch, suddenly it becomes more interesting, and his eyes are too big for the peanut, obviously. He doesn't know if he can get it in his mouth. He can. I've seen him put 3 of them in his mouth. So it's pinch distortion. Bigger eyes make the animal just a little bit more interesting unless you lose control. And maybe you really did photograph a psychotic goldfinch. Okay, bonus, hummingbirds. I used to take hummingbirds at the butterfly garden, but last year there weren't any. They all went to Astaku. Go figure. Hummingbirds are really hard to photograph because they move at 30 miles an hour. Their wings beat at 60 times a second. And to keep them from blurry, you have to shoot them at 1/3200th of a second or 1/4000th of a second. And then you don't have enough light at that speed when the bushes are under trees. And you have to shoot at f8 where there's no depth of field, and you can't get the picture right because you're trying to focus at the same time, and the bird is flying back and forth. And I used to get 1 out of 30. What you need is a good camera with automo eye focus like the R5, so then I don't have to focus it anymore. The camera finds the eyes of the bird and focuses on the eyes of the bird. Don't ask me how it does that. And you need a long lens so you can be far away, because they don't want you nearby here, unless you live in Texas. I understand they just come right up to you in Texas, but we don't live in Texas. And then you need topaz for high noise reduction because they're dark. But if you get all that, then you can get something like this. And there's a hummingbird upstairs, which Kate loves, which she said she's always wished she could see it. The bird it's a juvenile red one. Okay, and so now I just have some other pictures to show you that you might have seen or you could see, part of my utensil series. More pictures of dandelions, more smoke, milkweed. I have a friend who might even be here on Zoom who has this in her house. More dandelions, this on a red background. Chrome ladle on paisley paper, which I got at Walmart, with turmeric, dead flower, more smoke. Spoon. I love this spoon. If you start taking the spoon from one side to the other, take little pieces and get 50 or 60 pictures of the picture, then you get a really strange picture like this because you're shooting right up against the spoon and everything is sharp all the way to the end. And you're going, whoa, I never saw a spoon like that. And a regular flower and screw and hibiscus and more of the Morton salt, and you can see that they're not all square. You see the impurities on the Morton salt. Another flower, another dying flower. This one is dead. No hospice here. This one is clearly dead. And then this flower I found in my backyard. I don't know what it is. It's about this big. Who knew that it had little spikes on the edges of there? I didn't. That's really neat. Stamen, pollen on stamens, more of those, another fork, another one of those, the end. Okay, my thank yous, Southwest Harbor Public Library and Kate, pick up, stand up, Kate. Bow. If it weren't for Kate, looking at my pictures in July and saying, oh, wow. Okay, and then telling me that she wanted to have this and then pushing me to have a presentation, probably would not have ended up, in the newspaper, which she did. And so this is the Islander, but there's another show that looks just like this in the Ellsworth. And my God, I hope it doesn't go on Associated Press and I'm in the New York Times. But the person who wrote this, Jess Cummings, I'm sure she'd be delighted. Okay, the MDI Photo Club, they're not here, but I have to tell you that it was the MDI Photo Club that I'm giving you a pitch for it. I'm currently secretary. The president is in India, so I'm pretty much doing most of it. And they pushed me to realize that I couldn't be a real photographer if I wasn't a wedding photographer, of course, unless I showed my work. And so I have to tell them. The Islander, which I just held up, and then Linda Uberseder, stand up, Linda Uberseder, please. For encouraging me, putting up with equipment, and actually telling me to buy equipment without having me have to tell her all the 50 million ways why I need it. She just says, oh yeah, buy that, it'll be good for you. And I have all the equipment because when I was younger, I bought the equipment that I could afford, which wasn't all good. And I said to myself, you know, when I get old, I'm going to buy what I want. And one day I woke up, I was 70 years old and said, oh, damn, I'm old. And I went and bought what I want. Okay. Questions?
Any questions? Let's use the mic so people online can hear.
What I tell you. You believe me.
Where do you get the paper infused with metal or whatever it is that you?
Oh, it's just metal paper. You buy it at Adorama or B&H Photo or something like that. Basically, it's a formulation that puts some metal on it. And so what happens is it makes it a little more archivable. And also the ink that you put on it doesn't sink in. It stays up on the surface, so it doesn't get faded. It just jumps right out at you. And I started using that, and my picture just got instantly better because the pictures jump out at you. Yeah.
And do you have any, do you have any daily habits or
No.
like when you take, you do it?
I take pictures in the living room and I take pictures other places, and I don't really have daily habits. It's not like practicing my Renaissance guitar where I should practice every day because otherwise the fingers, I'll lose my calluses on my finger. No,
What kind of printer do you use?
I have a 13 by 19 inch, fairly inexpensive Canon printer. You can buy one for $350. They produce beautiful pictures like this, particularly when you're printing them on ink paper. I also discovered though that, and I hadn't said this before, is that when I go back and have to do that recleaning with all the boring and stuff, if I don't, I have to raise the exposure all the way to the top and then get rid of everything that's there, because otherwise the picture will show this hazy stuff in the background that I couldn't see, but that's there. And so that's a little piece of work that I discovered. The first couple didn't work right, but yeah.
Is it an inkjet or is it?
Yeah, it's an inkjet. And there's another reason for that. Inkjet, you can use it today, not use it until next week, not use it until April. It'll be fine. If you get an Epson and you don't use it every day, you'll have to replace half the machine. And I have friends who've done this too. They went to use it after 3 weeks and it was clogged. And then they had to replace all the heads and everything like that. So I recommend an inkjet. They're really fine now. The ink is good, and you can buy cheap ink, which is, you don't have to buy Canon ink. I don't buy Canon ink. Pictures look bad because I didn't buy Canon ink. It's half the price of Canon ink. Yeah.
Yeah.
Question from Krista online. She says, in the face of a blurry line between real and make it up, where do you draw the line for your work / art?
I don't make anything up. Okay, well, that's not true. I don't do what is called generative AI, where so I don't ask the machine to make something that isn't there. Now, changing the color, adjusting the color isn't changing something that isn't there, but I would recognize that everyone would recognize that there's no such thing as a pink dandelion, okay? And if people don't notice that, I'm sorry that there was no sunset on Steel Cove Pond, that's too bad for them. I don't think I've answered your question. Maybe there isn't a line, but I wouldn't do something that the computer does for me. So maybe the person could give me an example of a couple of things and ask me whether I would do that. It's just a question on that. Yeah, okay. Anybody else want to take their question and ask a further question so that I can help her with that? No takers. Okay, anyone else? I can't believe people are actually asking questions. Nobody usually does.
Oh, she was referring to the pond, so your Seal Cove Pond.
Yeah, I understand that. It's not real. But if you don't know it's not real, and I didn't ask the computer to do it, then maybe it's real somewhere. Maybe in an alternate universe, the sun goes in another spot. Okay, so I used to have a section on my presentation where I said you have to give up your belief that that you can only take pictures that match reality exactly according to this, and you have to give that away. So the kind of work I do is closer to painting than it is to I'm not taking care of pictures for posterity to see what it is. I'm not doing street photography. This is something very different than that. And so there's an element of painting to it, an element of creativity to it, and people who don't want pictures of suns in places where they don't belong shouldn't buy my pictures.
So her point also was that many photographers write disclaimers about how they use technology or not, but she loves your creativity.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, great. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Anybody else has some other question they want to ask me later, or people online who want to email me, go ahead.
And I'll send everyone here, I'll send everyone a link to the recording and some notes from the program too, and a link to more of his photographs. And they'll be up through November 30th, Saturday, I think it is.
All right, everybody have a good night.
Do you use a cell phone for your photos?
Absolutely not.
No.
You saw the big stuff that I have? Yes. Do I take pictures with my cell phone? Of course, everyone does. Do I take these pictures? Absolutely not. I could not print these up to this size, and then you could look at them and they would be sharp with a cell phone. And besides, you can't, there's lots of things you can't do macro with a cell phone. There's no attachments for a cell phone that will do the kind of work that I need to do for that.
Not designed for it.
So, yeah. But I was taking pictures at church for the directory with my big camera, and then one day I realized that this is dumb, and I got out my phone, and this is much better.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.